What if the person you love the most suddenly feels like a stranger living in the same house? What if every word you try to say only creates more distance, more silence, more fear? This video is a true story of 1 week in my marriage here in the United States. A week when love almost collapsed because we couldn't understand each other anymore. But it's also a story of how slowing down, listening, and choosing love helped us rebuild everything. The week everything broke. Some weeks feel like they've been waiting for the perfect moment to explode. You wake up, brush your teeth, drink your coffee, and think everything is normal. But beneath the surface, tiny cracks have been growing. And then one wrong word, one tired sigh, one mistake, and everything falls apart like a glass dropped onto the kitchen floor. That was my week. A week where love and frustration mixed into something sharp enough to cut both of us. You know that feeling when you look at someone you love and suddenly feel like you don't know them? It's terrifying. There we were in our cozy apartment in the United States, the place that once felt like our safe world. But the silence between us grew heavier each day. We were speaking English, the language we both shared. Yet somehow the more we talked, the less we understood. It's funny how communication works, right? You can hear every word clearly, but the meaning still slips through your fingers. I remember one night clearly. The kitchen lights were way too bright. The air felt cold even though the heater was on. We stood facing each other, but my heart felt miles away from hers. She said something simple, just one sentence, but my tired, stressed-out brain twisted it into an attack. My voice got louder. Her eyes got sadder. And suddenly love didn't feel like love anymore. Felt like a battle nobody wanted to fight. Maybe you've been there too. You try so hard to explain yourself, but the more you talk, the messier everything becomes. Your emotions start translating your words into something darker than your heart intended. And the person standing in front of you, the one who promised to love you through everything, becomes the person you're most afraid of losing. That night, I slept on the edge of the bed, pretending everything was okay while staring at the ceiling and wishing I could rewind the day. It was the kind of night where all the what-ifs attack your mind. What if she's tired of me? What if I'm the problem? What if love isn't enough anymore? The truth is simple but brutal. Love doesn't break suddenly. It breaks slowly, silently, until one moment makes the cracks visible. But here's what I didn't know yet. Sometimes the week when everything breaks is the same week everything begins to heal. The same chaos that almost destroys you can become the chapter that saves you. And that was the beginning of our story. Why love felt heavy. It's strange how love, the thing that once made your heart feel light like sunlight on your skin, can suddenly feel like a backpack filled with bricks. 1 week ago, I woke up and realized my chest was heavy before I even opened my eyes. Not because love disappeared, but because fear walked in. Fear of saying the wrong thing. Fear of not being enough. Fear of watching the person you love slowly give up on you. You know what makes it worse? When both of you are trying. When you're doing your best, but your best just keeps missing the target by 1 inch. That 1 inch becomes anger, then disappointment, then silence. We weren't fighting about big things. We were fighting about how we talked, how we listened, how we misunderstood, basically how we loved. There is a very annoying thing our brains do in relationships. They turn the person we love into the most dangerous person in the world. Because when they can hurt your heart, you start protecting yourself by attacking first. Not because you want to win, but because you're scared to lose. My wife and I would argue in English, clear words, wrong emotions. A simple sentence like, "Why didn't you tell me?" became, "You never think about me." A tiny comment like, "I feel tired," became, "I don't want to talk to you." Our feelings were speaking louder than the language we knew. And I realized something. Communication is not about vocabulary. It's about what your heart believes while your mouth is moving. Love felt heavy because every conversation felt like a test. One wrong word and boom, your relationship drops into a dark place. When you care too much, every mistake feels huge. I started fearing even normal conversations. I would rehearse what to say in my mind like I was studying for an exam. And somehow the more carefully I spoke, the easier it was to misunderstand. There's a kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone. It comes from standing right next to someone you love and feeling invisible. We stayed in the same home, but it felt like we were living in two different worlds. She wanted to feel safe. I wanted to feel understood. Both of us wanted love, but love isn't magic. It doesn't fix things by itself. What broke me was seeing her cry, quietly trying to hide it. Tears sound louder than words, especially when they come from the person who once called you home. So if you ever feel like love is too heavy, maybe it's not because your relationship is weak. Maybe it's because love is asking you to grow stronger, together. Words we couldn't say. Here's the funny, painful irony. We both speak English. We both understand each other's words. Yet somehow during that week, English became the enemy. Not because the language was wrong, but because our feelings were too loud. When emotions go into red alert, your brain stops listening for meaning. It listens for threats. One night, she looked at me with tired eyes and said very softly, "I just want to feel close to you." Such a tender sentence, right? But my exhausted brain, running on insecurities, translated it into, "You're not giving me enough. You're failing again." So instead of reaching for her hand, I raised my voice to defend myself. And just like that, love lost another round to misunderstanding. That's the dangerous magic of relationships. You hear what you fear, not what they say. It wasn't only the words themselves. It was how they landed. English is our shared language, but it's not our first language emotionally. The words "I'm fine" in a textbook mean one thing. In marriage, they can mean everything hurts, but I don't know how to tell you without making it worse. And the silence after those two words can feel like a storm waiting to destroy the house. We stumbled over tiny phrases that became mountains. "Give me space." "Do you not love me anymore?" "I'm hurt." "You're blaming me again." "I need time." "You're walking away." We weren't speaking to communicate. We were speaking to protect ourselves. At one point, I tried being extra clear. I slowed down my English, picked safe vocabulary, tried to explain why I felt scared of losing us. She listened, nodded, and then whispered, "I don't think you really hear me." That sentence hit harder than yelling ever could. Because she was right. I was listening to reply, not to understand, and that's when I realized, sometimes the most important sentences aren't the ones you say. They're the ones you can't say. There were so many words stuck in my throat. I'm scared too. I don't want to fight. I love you, but I'm tired. Please don't give up on me. But unspoken words are like ghosts. They haunt the space between you. They make you wake up at 3 a.m., sitting in the dark kitchen trying to rehearse tomorrow's conversation like a movie script, hoping this time the ending will change. Our problem wasn't English. It was fear. Fear turned our voices shaky, our sentences sharp, our meanings twisted. Love was still there, absolutely, but it had lost its volume. And the silence that replaced it was loud enough to break us. Yet even in that silence there was a tiny whisper inside both of us. We still want this. We still want each other. We just need to find the right way back. And maybe, just maybe, that was the beginning of learning a new language together, the language of staying. Love paused. There is a specific kind of silence that only exists between two people who used to laugh loudly together. It's not peaceful. It's not comfortable. It feels like someone pressed pause on your life, but your heart keeps running, panicking, trying to catch up. That silence filled our home. We still lived our routines. Breakfast, work, dishes, laundry. We said good morning, see you later, good night, but each word felt like a thin layer of ice over very deep water. One wrong step and everything below would break through. I'd open my mouth trying to fix things, and then close it again because I didn't know if speaking would help or destroy us more. Love shouldn't be this quiet. There was one evening, the longest evening of that week. We sat on the same couch, separated by just a few inches. But those inches felt like miles of unspoken fear. The TV was playing some American show with people arguing and reconciling in 20 minutes. Scripted drama that solves itself fast, and I almost laughed at the contrast. Real love doesn't have good writers. Real relationships don't fix themselves in one episode. She looked tired. The kind of tired that doesn't come from work, but from feeling alone while still sharing a life. I could feel her wondering whether this silence was safer than another fight, and I hated myself for being the reason she felt that way. When you love someone, you notice the smallest details. Her shoulders curled inward like she was trying to protect her heart. Her fingers picked at the blanket nervously. She breathed quietly, as if even air might start another argument. I wanted so badly to say, "Let me in. I'm right here." But my mouth stayed shut, locked by fear that I would say it wrong. That's the cruel thing about communication. Silence can break a heart faster than words. In that moment, I realized something powerful. We weren't broken because we stopped loving each other. We were breaking because we stopped showing it. Love doesn't disappear suddenly. It fades when you treat it like it will survive anything without care. So I reached out. Just a simple gesture, my hand resting carefully over hers. She didn't pull away. She didn't melt into my arms either. But her fingers relaxed slowly, like a flower unsure if the sun had really come back. That tiny movement was louder than any argument we'd ever had. Inside that paused moment, I finally understood. Love isn't loud. It doesn't always shout, "I'm here." Sometimes love whispers, "I haven't left." The silence didn't vanish that night, but it cracked just a little. And through that tiny crack, hope entered again. Because when love pauses, it's not always the end. Sometimes it's just waiting for two hearts to press play together, learning each other again. Imagine walking through your own home like it's a foreign country. Same walls, same furniture, same person you promise forever to. But suddenly everything feels unfamiliar. That's what the beginning of this week felt like. Not a breakup, not a disaster, but a strange, quiet reintroduction to someone I thought I already knew by heart. One morning, she stood in the kitchen making coffee. The sunlight hit her hair just right, that golden glow I've always loved. And I realized I had been so focused on defending myself that I forgot to admire her. I forgot that love needs noticing, not just surviving. So I decided to try something different, something tiny, maybe even awkward. I slowed down. My voice, my thoughts, my assumptions. Instead of preparing my defense before she even finished speaking, I listened. Not with my ears waiting to react, but with my heart trying to understand. It felt like studying English again. One gentle sentence at a time, we started speaking to each other like two people learning a new language, the language of healing. These were our new rules. Speak slower because fast emotions twist meanings. Look into each other's eyes, because eyes show what words hide. Choose softness over being right, because winning an argument can lose a heart. Ask before assuming, because love deserves clarity. One evening, she told me something so simple but life-changing. I don't need perfect English. I just need your honesty. That hit me like a warm wave. Because yes, English is our shared language here in the United States. But love is the first language we ever learned together. And for a while we forgot how to speak it, so we practiced again. Gently, clumsily, bravely. We sat down and shared one feeling each with no interruptions. She spoke first. I feel scared that you might stop loving me. I held her hand with both of mine and said, I feel scared too, but not of losing you. I'm scared of hurting you. And that moment was the first real breakthrough. Because love becomes stronger when two people admit they are weak. We didn't solve everything that night. But the distance between us shrank from miles to inches. Our breath slowed. Our shoulders softened. We remembered that our marriage wasn't built on perfect communication. It was built on choosing each other again and again, even when words fail. Learning English taught us grammar. Learning each other taught us grace. And honestly, grace is what saves love, not vocabulary. Tiny words, huge love. There's a secret doorway back into someone's heart, and it often looks way too small to matter. A soft I'm here. A gentle I hear you. A quiet thank you. Those tiny words are like bridges you build one plank at a time until you can finally cross again. So we started using them. Not perfectly, not poetically, but sincerely. That morning she was washing the dishes. Normally I would rush to finish mine or hide behind my phone. Anything to avoid another awkward moment. But I walked over, took the plate from her hand and whispered, "Thank you for staying." Her eyes widened, that surprised, hopeful look like a child opening a gift they didn't expect. 3 words. Just 3. But they softened the whole room. Love doesn't always need grand speeches. Sometimes it just needs noticed. We didn't magically turn into relationship experts. We still misunderstood things. Still stepped on emotional landmines. But now we caught ourselves faster. When she looked away, I asked, "Are you okay?" When my voice rose, hers stayed calm. When fears showed up, we held hands instead of holding on to anger. It felt a little like learning pronunciation in English, one sound at a time, repeating gently until it stops feeling strange. I love you used to be easy. Now it was heavier but deeper, like a promise we were polishing together. One night, I made tea for both of us. We sat close, but this time the closeness didn't feel forced. She leaned her head on my shoulder, not because she forgot the pain, but because she trusted that I wouldn't run from it anymore. My heart warmed like the steam rising from our cups. We talked about small things, the tree outside that looked like it was dancing in the wind, the sound of the neighbor's dog snoring, the silly English phrases Americans use like break a leg. She laughed. I laughed. We weren't fixing anything in that moment, just remembering why we wanted to. Here's the beautiful truth. Relationships don't heal through big moments. They heal through dozens of tiny ones that say, I still choose you. Because love isn't measured in intensity, it's measured in consistency. You don't repair a heart with one grand apology. You repair it by showing up again and again and again. So we kept practicing. A little slower, a little kinder, a little closer. And for the first time in many days, love felt like a home again. Choosing love again. You know that moment when you finally breathe after holding your breath for too long? That was us, sitting together at the end of the week, hearts bruised but still beating toward each other. Not perfectly, not smoothly, but honestly, there's a very strange but beautiful thing about relationships. They don't grow strongest in the happy days. They grow strongest in the days that almost break you. We sat at the dining table, the same place where we had argued, misunderstood, and cried. But this time we weren't fighting. We were rebuilding. Slowly, carefully, like two people putting pieces of a puzzle back together, making sure each piece was handled with love. She said something that felt like a soft sunrise inside my chest. I don't want a perfect marriage. I want us. Just two words, perfect and us. But the difference between them is the difference between pressure and peace. We talked about our fears like they were guests at the table. Invited, not hidden. She admitted she feared I'd stop caring. I admitted I feared I'd never be enough. And in that conversation, fear lost its power. Because fear only wins when you keep it silent. We held hands, not like lovers in a movie, but like teammates planning their next step. We made small promises. Listen with patience, not defenses. Speak feelings, not attacks. A hug before walking away. Ask for clarity instead of assuming the worst. No fireworks. No dramatic music playing in the background. Just two people saying, I'm here. I'm trying. And that is the most romantic sentence in any language. I looked at her, really looked, and saw the woman I fell in love with. The one who fights for us even when she's tired. And she looked at me like she was seeing the man who promised to walk beside her, not ahead or behind. Love isn't a feeling that magically stays strong. Love is a decision you remake every single day. That night when we curled into each other's arms, it didn't feel like going back to how things were before. It felt like stepping into something new, stronger, deeper, more real. Because the strongest couples aren't the ones who never fight, they're the ones who refuse to quit. We chose love again. Not because it was easy, but because we remembered why it was worth it. Love teaches English too. I used to think I was learning English just for opportunities, for work, for community, for a better life in the United States. But this week, I realized something deeper. Love teaches English too. When you live with someone from a different culture, a different communication style, a different emotional language, every sentence becomes a test. Every conversation becomes a classroom. There was a moment this week when my wife said, "I don't feel heard." Those 4 words hit harder than any grammar rule I ever studied. Not heard, not understood, not safe. In that moment, I learned a new definition of communication. Communication is not about speaking English well. It is about making the person you love feel understood. I slowed down. I stopped trying to be perfect. I stopped searching for fancy words. I just tried to say what my heart truly meant. Simple English. Honest English. I love you. I'm listening. I want to understand. And suddenly we weren't fighting the language anymore. We weren't fighting each other. We were fighting misunderstanding. Together, love became the teacher. And we were both students. I noticed something interesting. When I was angry, my English got worse. When I felt loved, my English flowed. Because fear shuts down language, but safety opens it. Every hug is a lesson in connection. Every apology is practice in humility. Every late night talk is homework in trust. We started creating little habits. Slow English every night, no phones, no distractions. Just us. Repeat key feelings. So you're feeling hurt because one heart, one voice. We breathe before we speak. Safe words. Phrases to stop a conflict before it explodes. Can we pause? I need a break, but I love you. Same team. These tiny phrases, they saved us. They reminded us that marriage isn't 2 people winning arguments. Marriage is 2 people learning to speak the same emotional language. English will help me find success in America. But love helps me stay whole, stay soft, stay human. If you're learning English because you want to communicate with the world, that's beautiful. But if you're learning English because you want to communicate with someone you love, that's powerful. This week taught me the heart is the real language. English is just the tool. So keep practicing. Not for grammar, but for connection. Not to impress people, but to understand someone who matters. Love teaches the lessons we never see in textbooks, and the most important one is this: speak with your heart first. The words will follow.